Hello, this is Dr. Young, and I'm going to go over your discussion and your assignment this week. I know that you can pull up your own rubrics at this point and review the, exceeds column to make sure that you meet your requirements as far as the answers and that you post in the responses. But I'm going to go over the content of your discussion, which this week we're talking about structure, organizational structure. So I've posted this clarification. It just gives you a little bit more information. I want you to compare and contrast each of the 5 structures listed here. I want you to make sure to give me the differences. Define them and give me the differences. Number 2 is you're going to choose one which you would like to work and why. And make sure to give me a very good rationale behind why. A lot of times I'll get students that just post what they would like, which structure they would like, but they don't really tell me why. Number 3, you're going to look up and research the organizational structures of Google and Walmart, and you're going to tell me the differences between the two. You can tell me the similarities as well, but definitely want to see the differences. Number 4 is what kind of control processes might be found in each of the organizations. So basically what you want to do is tell me what kind of control processes would be, okay, Walmart, for example. Well, I know one thing is the more people that shoplift, the higher the prices are. So there's going to have to be a control measure for that to control how much product is stolen from that store. Taken, that's an example. There'd have to, what kind of control measure would be used there. I mean, obviously, between Walmart and Google, there'd be some different control measures. There might even be some similar ones too. That's what you want to tell me about. 5, describe what types of quality management processes might be found in each of the organizational structures. Continuous improvements, an example. 6 Sigma is an example. I'm a 6 Sigma green belt myself, and I like that process. It's very quantifiable. You can see it mathematically. You can see the difference and the changes and the effects that they have clearly. But that's just an example. So look up those types of methods and tell me which one you think, or which ones Google and Walmart would use. That use, and there are certain methods they use, but I don't think they use 6 Sigma. But do that research and tell me about that. Okay, I'm going to move on to the assignment. This is a big paper. It's 4 to 5 pages. That does not include the title or reference page. And you need to use 8 to 10 key concepts from your readings or the course materials. Basically, you're going to go through the planning, organization, and controlling functions. So for your company, you're going to need to do a lot of research. You're going to need at least three library sources. You probably will use more sources than that overall. You need to give me a clear introduction and a clear conclusion. Let's just start there. And a thesis statement. You need to see that too. You're going to need to do research about that organization and how it was managed in the past and how it's managed now. There may have been some major changes. I want you to look for that and talk about it. What kind of management approaches may have been used 10, 20 years ago? What's being used now? How are they different? Describe how the organization is structured. There's going to be a section with a organizational chart. I want to see that chart from that organization in the paper, incorporated in the paper and cited. Ensure one of the 5 types of structures as described in the textbook is identified and analyzed. So make sure to do that. Identify a key manager in the organization and describe his or her primary functions and responsibilities. A key manager, HR manager, CEO, looking for an executive type manager here. Evaluate how effective this manager is in fulfilling these responsibilities, making clear recommendations for improvement. Ensure you refer to the functions of management as described in your textbook. Again, it's referring you to the textbook. Make sure that you have the textbook available to you when you're writing this. Please do not use that as your sole source for this paper, though. So you've got to identify a position within the structure that you found and focus on that position. Then you're going to look for information on how a manager, that type of manager does. And if you can find it specific to the company, that is the best thing. Sometimes you're going to have trouble finding that information. Please go to the course, the site for the course materials. There's probably going to be a lot of things there that's going to help you with this paper. Describe how decisions are made in this organization. Use materials from the textbook or other relevant sources on decision making. Evaluate the effectiveness of the decision making process and make clear recommendations for improvement. Describe the system, and right there, that's you're going to be looking at that position and how decisions are made in that position. And you're going to be looking at the culture, because some organizations allow more flexible decision making than others. It just depends on, you're going to need to kind of understand what the culture is there. Describe the system of controls the organization uses. Now, we've talked about that in the discussion, but you're going to apply it to the, you might actually use the, well, it depends on your organization if you chose what you chose, but, how does it meet its goals? How does it keep processes flowing? How does it keep, I don't know, is it a company that makes product? How does it keep, products from rolling out with a bunch of defects? Those are things you need to think about. Is it a service? How do you keep customers happy? What are some customer service controls that you've got put in there? You have a return policy, for example, that keeps people from, keeping customers is a way to control your profits as well, if you think of it indirectly, but still, there's things that, just think through all those things. What are you producing, and how do you keep producing it, and keep people coming back and to make, profits? There's control measures that have to be built into all the functions of getting that product out to customers, and how do you do that? Yeah, so evaluate the role of managers in these processes. What is the role of the position that you chose from that structure in the control process, quality, and of course, TQM, if you're going to have a specific method there, please talk about that method. I know I used it before, I use it again, because I used to work for GE, and we made appliances, and what they would do is they would use Six Sigma to minimize defects coming off the manufacturing line, to make sure that the products were working and they weren't the defective, and they would use this process to make improvements so that they'd have better quality products coming off the line that didn't have to be serviced as much, or returned or whatever. So that's just one example, though. I think Toyota uses continuous improvement, and you can look up that information and research that method. There's lots of different types. Excuse me. Evaluate the role of managers in these processes. Make clear recommendations for improvement. Ensure you refer to your textbook and other relevant sources in your evaluation. Summarize the key recommendations you have made, identifying each with the relevant function of management. Each section requires you to look at what the situation is and recommend improvements. The last part of the paper is going to require you to summarize those and match them with what type of function it is. For example, I'm going to use the last one. Again, I'm going to expand. If I was researching a company that had, maybe there's some news or media reports of, faulty products. Let's talk about the recalls. I mean, there's a million recalls every week, it seems like. For example, this airbag company that supplied faulty airbags to, millions of cars. I actually happen to be one of the owners of those cars, where the airbags were, killing people. Well, if I was if I were the manager or the leadership of that company, I would be questioning my quality control right now. I would look at what I've done in the past for quality control, and I would reevaluate possibly changing a method and using a different one to make sure that my product is not defective. And that would be part of the controlling process. So that's an example of one right there. I might use Six Sigma myself because I feel like it's it's probably because I came from GE culture that I'm, I espouse that method, but that doesn't, there's other methods, but changing that's an example of what I want to see in this paper is, whatever company that you chose, look for issues, look for news articles about, product defects or service defects or something going on, and then you can kind of use that in the paper and say, okay, well, this is what happened with this company at this time with their quality. There was quality issues, and this is what I would recommend to do in the future. I mean, absolutely, that's a great example. But I want you to think you need to do that for each function here. So this is a difficult paper. It is a very big project, I think. So you need to dedicate the time to it if you want a good grade. APA format is what is required for your reference list and title page. They do not count toward the minimum page requirement, so just bear that in mind. This is the rubric, and this is the smaller one. I'm going to click on the expanded one. I want you to use this as a checklist while you're writing your papers. This is a huge paper, so just make sure that you're taking the time to do it carefully. But in the meantime, here are your point breakdown. And this is your point breakdown. All this here. You want to meet this column, this criteria right here is what you want to do. You want to just, check it off. Make sure you covered everything that needed to be covered. For example, I'm just going to read one section. You can look at this on your own. I'm going to just highlight that real quick. For example, the control analysis of the control systems and quality control processes are clear, correct, and well supported. Recommendations for improvement are clear, correct, and well supported. So you've really got to think about how you can connect the course concepts that you've learned to the company that you chose and how they do business. This is going to require lots of research to see what's the current state, what and the historical perspective of how has this company changed over the years. And you want to look for articles and problems that you've in the library. You might have to look also like news publications like Forbes and Business Week to see kind of more current events, because what I've noticed is the library is great, but it doesn't always have the most current things on there. I mean, you might find some kind of something that's happened within the last year or two that you might not find in the library, but just kind of, you have to use a minimum of 3 library sources. And I'll know if they're, I'm going to be able to tell. So make sure that you do that. But that doesn't mean you can't use other sources on top of that. Because you're going to need to know, how has the company's, how has the function of the company changed, from the past to now? What are some events that may have happened, like, as far as quality problems? You might want to look for that, because that way you can kind of talk about, well, you know what, this happened, this is how we can improve that process. As far as the planning function, when you're looking in the past, you might find that they've changed the way they do their recruiting or their staffing. That's part of the planning function. And how's the manager involved with that? and how have changes occurred there. So you see where I'm going. You've got to just make sure that you've addressed all of those functions. Well, all three of those: planning, organizing, and controlling. Yeah, so just think about that. If you have any questions or concerns, let me know. Make sure to pull up the rubric, like I know I already told you that. And I will be, hopefully answering questions about this. Take the time to do this right. This is the biggest assignment that we have in this class. I'm going to go over here too, and don't forget about this resource. And sometimes I know it's easy to forget, but let's see, course-specific database. Now I know I went over this earlier in the term, but I want to just go ahead and remind you that this is a resource for you. You can go to this database here and get information about your specific company. Don't forget about that, because this is something that you want to make sure that you go here first. Before I would go here first before going to the library, just to make sure and see if there's any, there's targeted materials here for this class. So don't forget that resource. Any questions or concerns, let me know. I'm looking forward to a great week, and discussion as well. Thank you, and have a great